Hello and welcome everyone, welcome Sacred Souls, welcome to another show of Wisdom of the Ancients. I'm your host Ian Shelley. Thank you so much everyone for being here, bringing your amazing vibrations to the show. We have a wonderful show planned for you today. So let me introduce our next guest to you. Kelly Hampton is a second wave Pleiadian here to anchor the Christ grid to Earth. She is an international teacher and healer, advanced channel and gifted medium. She's also the author of 3 renowned books from Archangel Michael. Into the White Light, The Revelations of Archangel Michael, 2012 and Beyond, and The Truth from Archangel Michael, and then her latest, Healing Wisdom for the Animal Kingdom. She's the founder of multiple 5th dimensional to 12th dimensional groundbreaking healing systems since 2010, including STAR Healing Intergalactic Energy, STAR Healing Equine, and STAR Healing for Small Animals. Kelly is the founder of Ascended Spaces for creating abundance and dominion, the Angel's new astrology system for the new millennium. She certifies practitioners worldwide in these ascension systems and leads 5th dimensional retreats to power spots around the world, including upcoming retreats to Glastonbury, Mount Shasta, and Assisi. She has appeared alongside many of the world's most recognized teachers and has a new line of powerful healing accessories called StarCode Creations. So welcome, Kelly, to Wisdom of the Ancients.
Thank you so very much, Ian, for having me.
Can't wait to get into this conversation with you today. I know that you are going to be bringing Archangel Michael, and I know many people in the community are looking forward to hearing what Michael has to say. But you're also going to be talking about creating miracles and really also going to be talking about Stargates and StarCodes. So all of these things could help people in their everyday lives. I wanted to get started by having you maybe describe some of your experiences as a Pleiadian. There are many people on the show, of course, who know you, who've heard you, maybe even follow you, but there's also people who've never heard you before. So if you could just tell us a little bit about your experiences as a Pleiadian and how you came to discover that you had, the gifts that you have.
Well, thank you very much. I am really quite happy to talk about these things, of course. What are these things? Everything that we're going to be speaking about. So a lot of information is continue to stream into mainstream, or become mainstream. And some of your guests might be, or listeners might be wondering, well, why doesn't she identify herself as a mother or a daughter or this, that, or the other, or a kind person? And of course, those are all aspects that, we can sort of label or identify ourselves with in life, whatever they may be. But there was a long period in my life where I didn't feel comfortable really saying and sharing what I do now professionally and have done for the last 30 years. And maybe, the bigger message for everyone is that, there's a part of them that they've been kept, quieted down or something. And so I think just saying certain words carry a vibration. So Pleiadian, Arcturian, Sirian, of course, obviously love and these kinds of things. But largely in the last, I'd say, probably about 25 to 30 years, I have been gained awareness about where my star home is. And this awareness was gained through a variety of teachings throughout my life. I guess my earliest experience that I can recall was, as a young child in, 7, 8, 9, something like this, being visited by an energy, that I called the monster. In hindsight, it's kind of funny, but at the time, I guess like a lot of kids, you have nightmarish sort of things, but they were not of the nightmarish type. It's just that I know many, many nights I would go in and tell my mother that they were back, not really knowing who they were. And since that time, as things were revealed, my understanding is that I would say it was my Pleiadian family. So I know your audience is very educated, and but the Pleiadians are just one light race that just say showing up and been showing up amongst dozens and dozens now that are here to help Mother Earth and all of us on our planet, return her and us to the domain of I am all that is, or oneness, awakening, ascension, all these ideas of fifth dimensional pure love plane. And maybe if we get a chance, we'll talk about how this came to be. But as far as my personal experiences, quite early on, if those of you that are new to me also, was a witness to having Christ's face appear in a glass of water one day. I remember quite vividly as a child. And so I suppose some other things went on that I don't really recall. And then soon thereafter, I was able to connect with my mother pretty easily telepathically after she transitioned. So now we're about age 20. I'll speed it along if we need to. But I never asked really for anything. I didn't ask, to have information for books. I didn't ask to learn how to connect. I wasn't taught anything. I would just say that it was given at the appropriate time, and my mother miscarried several times. I vibrated very high, and there are other indicative things that have been shared in a loving manner over the years about the origin. And, I'm really pleased, quite pleased, that in the 10 years since the intergalactic system, amongst one of the ascension systems was downloaded to me, that programs like yours and people continue to awaken, that what we're talking about now is not so foreign. That's what I see and experience, as we're out and about, and thankfully so, that some veils of untruth are coming off of us on planet Earth and so on. So it's really a very joyous time for me, and I hope many of your listeners to be living. And even though, of course, we're all aware that there are certain, things that still need work. And but as Michael and many of the masters try to remind us anyway, that it is the most auspicious time, and we all chose to incarnate at this time to experience and be a part of it, however that part may be determined. So the telepathy was there, as I say, from my mother, and then guides showed up. Christ appeared many times and led me through journeys of so on and so forth. I primarily, if you're unfamiliar with my work, I am a clairaudient. I hear guidance. I get impressions sometimes, but I certainly am not clairvoyant. But that clear hearing, which I feel has been fine-tuned over the years, partly through some experiences energetically that were shared upon me or, opened up. We all have, these aspects or ourselves to sort of be and do the same. It may not be a person's mission on Earth to anchor the ascension grid, but nevertheless, we all, of course, have the capability to know all, see all, be all, and that's, part of what I hope I can awaken within people if they're not searching, or if some densities have clouded them, or they might be listening and no one else in their life understands what we're talking about, which can still go on. And share this information in a loving way, a confident way, really a supreme way. And it's not really a time any longer, I feel, that we hide behind something. And I would say in some respects 10 years ago in the middle of the Midwest, I did and even prior to 10 years, going back 20 years, I hid, information because, I didn't know what to do with it. I wasn't confident. I didn't feel that many of my peers or neighbors or community collectively, whatever, would be accepting. And so I say I hope that all of us here today and moving forward continue to embrace so much goodness, and so much of goodness is needed at this time still for our planet, so that we can just be the beautiful, loving planet with no racism, no war, no starvation, things like this that are desperately needed. And at this time, there are so many thousands. In fact, we could ask Michael, or today we could call in the Pleiadian Council, the Galactic Council, and ask them. But if it's curious or interesting to people, but there are hundreds of thousands of light workers that are here that are doing something in their own way. And it's so vitally important now. It's really an important time to think that the time has passed. Certainly it's not. It's, as Michael's made it quite clear in some of his prophecies or predictions for this year particularly, it's time to wake up, he said in a pretty commanding voice. He if I can refer back to Michael's guidance here, what he said at that time also was, it's wake up, America. It's not time to place all the power in the angelic realm to fix things. It's not time to have your neighbor, ask your neighbor, expect your neighbor to do something. He's very much a champion of these things, but the champion really is that to take our own responsibility. And really, when we talk about stars and stargates and star codes and healing of all type, it all really goes back to love is what it is. So in the very simplest form, aside from what we're going to be sharing here today, one would say if a person is wondering, what can they be doing, you just give love and you give it over and over and over and over again. It maybe sounds trite. Sometimes it's difficult to do because judgment can come in. And maybe we'll touch upon judgment codes and those kinds of things in our call also. But my history is, pretty much summarized in that manner, I guess I would say. What they ask me to do next, and how it's done next, I'm just I don't know. I just go with the flow.
Well, thanks for sharing that. It's interesting around what Michael said around waking up, because I didn't announce this at the beginning of the call, but usually I do. The theme for this particular season for Wisdom of the Ancients is the sacred human answering the call, right? So that's really, really in alignment with what Michael's saying. So, we're all brought together here. So, based on the energies that are coming together and what needs to be done. Before we talk about the codes and some of the other things, maybe we'll talk about some of the predictions that Michael has, but share with everyone, maybe briefly though, your coming together with Michael and the work that you and Michael do. So when did you, I guess, meet Michael and become aware that you were a channel for Archangel Michael?
Well, it may surprise some people or not, but I didn't really see Michael until maybe about 5 years ago. And this, as I said, is about going on a 30-year journey now of professionally working to help others, stepping into my shoes and coming out from the corner. And so first Raphael came. Well, let me just back up real quickly. Once the doorway was open to my mother, my beloved mother, and I knew that life was eternal and I could make that connection, then I did a little seeking in my late 20s and early 30s. And through some of these, I had a few regression sessions. And in those regressions, Christ appeared, amongst others. And that but that, darn it, the first time something so loving happens and so reverently, and same is true for the angels, although Michael tends to be playful, and but the feeling, whoever you want to call it, if it's God, if it is an ascended master, whatever that, that vibrational feeling that's really hard to describe, of overwhelming unconditional love, which most people, I guess, or many people think that they need to wait until they make a transition off the earth plane to experience. But those types of experiences that still continue, and those feelings of vibration really are the fuel for the mission. And so Christ came really very integrally early. Then Raphael came. He was in my, I heard. They told me these. I started, hearing. And then sometime after that, 3 nights in a row, as I write about in the first book Michael downloaded to me, is, the vibration of Michael came and awakened me in the middle of the night. And so it was a big bright light, hence the name of that first book so many years ago. And, I was in disbelief, really. So it took 3 nights of awakening for me to agree when Michael said we're going to write a book together. So by then I'd had some background of understanding and feeling and knowing different frequencies of master guides, I guess we could say. And so that was really the first kind of, big, strong, I guess I'd say, introduction of work to be done. And that work really literally resulted in the first book, which Michael talks about largely what goes on in the kingdom of heaven. So I think like many people or any skill set, if we're talking as a skill set, in retrospection, they gave me a little bit at a time to process and understand. They gave me a little bit more to process and understand, and of course, continuing to do it to today. So once those books were done, and Michael coaxed me to kind of come out of my corner, and then he just kept downloading information, and with some fine-tuning on the channeling rods ethereally that were placed and some other adjustments, I guess I'd say. Then more ability showed up, although I don't really like ability. Let's just say there were, Michael is one of many guides, Mother Earth, fairies, rocks, trees, it's to me, I'm very similar to a television antenna, and it's what channel do you want to listen. But primarily Michael is, a very strong guide, aligning himself with the intergalactics to help us in this time of what we call the Great Awakening. But of course, it's when we refer to Christ consciousness, we're talking about no attachment to any religion. Of course, it's a frequency of love. So as a child, that's how I referred to Christ, and of course there's many, we all have our, I guess, many names that we have to label things, but Sananda, Yeshua, many others. Some believe that master didn't even have a name. But in any event, a lot of times these different guides, Mother Mary, Mary Magdalene, Mother Earth, again, Michael was the one that fine-tuned these abilities, I believe, within me to be largely a clairaudient channel. And so that's kind of it. I didn't really see Michael until one time, not too long ago. I had like a tooth infection or something, but beside the point, I was in a lot of pain. I didn't really call on him, but he soared through. If anyone has, again, I'm not clairvoyant, so it's a bit different for me, but in this particular case, he soared through the vision. Everything was white, and the clouds parted, and he had tall white boots on, and he had a commanding sword, and it was just a commanding, loving, sort of soaring through my vision, healing down upon me, and so many remarkable experiences that I never would have thought, had you asked me what, even 20 years ago, what I'd be doing and how I'd be doing it, I'd say, I don't have recollection. I don't believe I know what you're talking about, especially as a young woman that lost her mother at a very early age, and there was a very dark period in my life. So the purpose of sharing that briefly with everyone, I guess, if there is a purpose, is that if you happen to be listening, and if you're in a dark place, whatever that dark place is, miracles happen. What is it's a miracle, really. Everything can be seen as a miracle. And Michael tells us many times, expect miracles in this life. They were granted to us the day we were born. So, of course, there are influences that kind of can sort of weigh upon us, I guess we could say, for simplicity, and certainly many, many methods to lighten that pressure so that we all are in our, supreme, so that feeling of unconditional love of, maybe it's a family member you've received. Maybe it is a Christ figure. But that it becomes part of our regular life, and we expect these things. We live these things. We are these things.
Right. Yeah. Exactly. Anything is possible, and everything is possible. Yeah, absolutely. I wanted to talk a little bit now about the StarCodes. So, because we want to get to readings in just a little while, but I also want to have you tell us about the StarCodes, what they are, and how they can help people. So, were you given the StarCodes by Pleiadians or by Michael? Firstly, where did you get or find out about the StarCodes?
Well, I found a piece of paper lying on the street.
Yeah.
Michael is usually the go-to guy,
Okay.
So sometimes, if like probably some other individuals, I don't always ask the source. I just trust now, But in any event, the codes he clearly introduced to me some time ago when they're really called, or could be called, harmonics. Okay, that might be a word. Just saying that word is another example of a word that raises our frequency. So if nothing else, maybe you all can go about, talking about harmonics, but that's what Michael gently reminds us about. So harmonics and harmonic star codes were first introduced to me really a long time ago when what are star codes or harmonic codes or harmonic star codes? They're a form of light language is what they are, and we certainly use light language in every intergalactic session, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But more recent time, Michael shared these codes with me because it's a way that he feels every man, woman, and child from every culture, every function in life can use them for healing, or I would say expansion, to be clear. And they can be numbers, they can be colors, they can be a combination of numbers and colors. Light language, there are many more light races that continue to transmit their languages to us, but not everybody hears them or speaks them, and it can be a little complex if you. So again, Michael is a very practical guide. I think the conceptual things we're talking about have to do with, harmonics, a combination of spirals of time, spirals, you might say, through matrices, the complexities of what Michael and the Pleiadians, Galactic Council, which happen to be light beings from the 9th to 12th dimensions. They're all sort of collaborating and working together. Can be very, kind of deep, I'd say. But generally, Michael simplifies things. He likes it that way. And that's, I think, a great wonder of working with him because then everyone feels, I hope, that they can be part of something or they can imagine something, right? We can all imagine. So if some of you are listening and you don't have the channels open of all knowing, all hearing, all seeing, all being, whatever we're called, sentience, all of those things, then we might imagine some things. So again, the codes have existed in various forms through the work that he's asked me to do. They were introduced in Ascended Spaces, which is a system for creating abundance from Michael using a home-based system in which there are harmonic codes to increase joy, to increase financial prosperity. So in that case, those harmonic codes or clusters were arrangements, and still are, arrangements of objects that vibrate on a certain frequency. Harmonic codes were reintroduced to me, or extended teaching also in Michael's Book of Animals, where he asked people to become the alchemists that we are and work with them, really, just learn the codes and work with them, in that particular case, of course, with the animals and for the animal planet. So more recently, these star codes, as I say, are a collection of what I would call pretty simple numbers, colors, and their vibrations that can help many physical conditions, many emotional conditions. They can help a person connect with places like the great central sun, or frequencies like, I guess maybe I could say. And so more training or teaching on my part was given with the harmonic star codes about 5 years ago or so in Mount Shasta when I was doing work there. When Michael asked me to download some code information, and he did. I mean, he just said it's time. And so at that time there were codes which were still valid. No, nothing's not valid or nothing's outdated. Codes to connect with Jupiter, for example. And why could that be important? Because Jupiter is very important in our evolution at this time. At that time, there were codes to connect using these harmonic sequences to connect directly with God Mind. There were codes that he downloaded to connect with the great central sun, Nebulon. I think there were 4 or 5 at that time. So that was kind of all clustered in there, and so I don't know, I'd say maybe a few years ago then, he asked that the codes be, presented so that people can work with them on their own.
So Kelly, sorry to interject there, how do we work with the codes?
Oh, okay. I'm happy. I do need to explain this, and I'm happy to do so. It would be really simple, Ian and listeners, if there was one way. Right?
Yeah, okay.
All right. It's not complicated, and I'll go over that but there isn't one way. It kind of how do you work with them? It depends on a few things. It depends really on how much you see and feel energy, because they're vibrational statements. So some of Michael's guidance is as follows. They can be used in a variety of ways, okay? And some of the ways, as I did in Mount Shasta, are to write them down, or you could use, how we'll use them, present them today. You can write them down, okay? That's what I did. You can write them down on paper. You can write them in your etheric fields, in your mind, or with your finger if you wanted, or your energy bodies, if you call it that. The codes will stay there. Even if Michael's quite clear, he says, you may not even be believing what this is about. You may not even see it. You may not even feel these things. But they're a powerful, simple way to step into your birthright to heal. So they can be used in that way. They can be written down in your energy fields. They can be, they've transitioned themselves now also into objects that we've turned into accessories, okay, but it's not a have to, it's just an extension, so that the code itself is worn on a person, but you don't have to wear the code on you all the time, and you don't have to wear it at all. Just trying to describe another way that the codes have been sort of growing. So that's primarily, the means. What Michael asked us, so the codes are safe to use. Okay, they're a form of light language from different star races that can have tremendous healing capability. In fact, in some cases, maybe one code is enough for a person or a place or an animal or the oceans of India or what have you. In other cases, as he tells us, depending, a person or an animal, place, let's just go with a person might need or benefit from several codes. Okay? because usually if we're talking about trying to move or heal, let's say a physical component to ourselves, almost always there's an emotional component. So sometimes an emotional, more than one code might be necessary, and he does outline, and I'll go over that with folks, about, not to use codes and codes and codes and codes like we're gorging ourselves at a meal, So I'll go over a little bit more in just a second. But certainly, because I asked Michael, okay, I'm happy to present this material, Michael, but what about all the thousands of people around the world that have been, and the practitioners that have been trained in STAR Healing Intergalactic Energy? I wanted to make certain I wasn't outdating. Why would you tell me all this, please? If now it's something that replaces it, And so I asked, and he said, I don't see this as a replacement, these codes whatsoever. I see them as a useful tool for people to step into their alchemy, the alchemists that they are, and in some cases, a code or multiple codes will be enough, and in the densest of situations, a person would be advised or encouraged to consider a full immersion in what we call many different transformational sort of tools in the system itself, the intergalactic system, which Michael downloaded to me in 2010. So that's a little bit about sort of how they fit into things, and that's been my experience so far. What do I mean there exactly? That of the individuals that have used the codes, whether they've written them down, placed the code by their bedside table, written it in their energy field or the codes, whether they've been drawn and led to using some of the accessories that we've developed. In some cases, it's complete enough for them. In other cases, it's helpful. In other cases, it may not be quite enough, depending on the severity or, let's say, densities of what's going on in their lives and what they wish to accomplish. So just to talk about that a little bit more, there are dozens and dozens and dozens of codes. And so as we talk about this a little bit, and later on when we get into the package, there are a lot of codes that are in there that are in the package. You can, if you've got when we look at that, depression, diabetes, many codes for viruses, codes to help offset EMFs, all of the toxic, the things that are coming out from the devices and the 5G, I don't know what to call it really, just the 5G.
Yeah. Yep.
And as well as to help create prosperity, to help ease of manifesting, to help longevity, to help deeper states of relaxation quicker, for more joy, more love. They're vibratory, short codes at this level that every man, woman, and child can use. And again, another point I would like to say about them, and also, of course, they can be used for connecting to interstellar galaxies. Michael tells us to give them some time to integrate. Sometimes I've heard from individuals that tell me almost immediately they noticed a change, a shift, improvement, what have you. You don't have to feel a thing, just like in anything really that the angels and the masters and other guides, ask to be presented. You don't have to feel it. In fact, it may take a little act of faith or something, but you don't have to feel or see anything. Again, they're numbers and codes. For example, a code, and I don't memorize them all, right? I have to refer to them myself. But, for example, a star code might be pink LL19. Okay, it's vibrating. It's a combination, as we said earlier, can be of colors, numbers, and so on. Sometimes they're not all in that sequence.
So we can write it down, or we can actually speak it out. And if that one is, for example, to connect with interstellar galaxies hypothetically, then if we write it down, is there a particular place where we want to place that?
Okay, well, excellent question. Because we want to make this information clear for everybody and usable, so that nobody feels like they aren't using it correctly. And that's, I think, or incorrectly, because you can't really use them incorrectly, okay, to my way of knowing. Sometimes people feel the code way outside of their field. For example, because I've heard from them, they might use a star code that they've written down, let's say, by their bedside table, and they're in a large residence, and they feel it when they're far, far away. But practically speaking, for most people, I would say, if they were to write it down, and they like the idea of on paper, then probably, where you're going to be, quite a bit. I also like the idea of writing the code with your finger in front of your light body. Okay? Because so that we want to present this information so someone doesn't think, oh, I've got to have the code right under my pillow to work. Okay? So you don't. I've heard of that before, but you don't. I would say this: if you are moved to use of these codes, and you write it down on a piece of paper, and it's in your purse, and you're not around your purse, and your purse has all kinds of dense objects in there. Could be money's dense, right? It doesn't mean that these codes are not going to be effective, but I would tend to think that would probably not be the ideal way. Although, for example, we have a star code accessory that goes in your cell phone to stop those rays, those EMFs, or diminish them. Okay, if not stop. I like, in that case. But most people are very connected to those things. So, again, the use of the codes, I'd like to go over them, some particular information about them right now, because they're charged not only because Michael reminds us that everything's highly charged. They're charged not only because he said they came from, I'm providing you that information. They're charged not only because we're listening to them as a collective here. They're charged by the numbers in the sequence themselves. They're charged by many different things. So you may feel something. So he says, be moderate, okay? He says, it may seem too simple that a few numbers and codes kind of linked together are going to have any effect for you. So certainly, he says, you may be thinking more codes the better. So let's just talk about this for a minute if we can, Ian. So let's say someone has multiple things in their life that they'd like to expand. Greater financial prosperity. Maybe they have some emotional and physical diseases, temporarily speaking, or something like that. So certainly there are multiple codes for many things, as I said earlier, but you don't have to. The guidance is to kind of use them moderately because you may feel releases. It's energy, and highly charged energies. So Michael suggests that for some of you, that's why there's not one model that can serve everyone, because there's a spectrum of people. But he says, say the code if you want once a day. The point is, don't use multiple codes in a day. Not that anything can harm you, but he says we'd rather make sure that there's an integration with your energy fields than to sort of like gorge ourselves all at once and be really emotional because you didn't feel using them at the time, So my guidance is if you're listening and you're hopeful to, have some positive change, and you have several things going on, I would not say in your mind and write with your finger in your energy field or write on a piece of paper 10 codes. Not at first. It might be too much for you. He says if that person is used to working with energies, right, then maybe a couple codes at a time, right? Again, it's not that anything can harm us, but a person might have energy releases. And if some of you don't know what that can appear like, most commonly the signs of toxic releases can be that you're temporarily tired, that you become more emotional, that something in the body can temporarily worsen as it gets, releases and restores itself. So, his guidance is be moderate. It's the same analogy as like, if you haven't run a marathon and, I'm going to get in shape, it's not advisable to like work out, 3 hours at a time. So just that would be how to use them would also pertain to the frequency, not just how they might be inscribed or worn. Okay.
Well, thank you. Well, I really feel that it's probably best right now to go through the offer, because the offer really encompasses everything that you've been speaking about. It encompasses the codes, as well as options to work with you privately for private channeling, as well as energy healing sessions. So, I'd love to go through the offer now, and then when you tell people what they can experience in private session with you, help them understand things like, well, you can get guidance from Michael in the session as well. Well, that's really what's coming through. So let me share with everyone, if you're on the webinar page, then click the orange button underneath Kelly's photograph, and that'll take you to the offer page. And the reason I'm telling you this is that you can follow along visually, and most of you, I know, do want to do that because you've written to me and told me. So if you're not on the page, then type in wotashow.com, wotashow.com/Kelly, which is KELLY, and the number 7, wotashow.com/Kelly. So it's quite a long offer, but it's really part of this is the work. I mean, this is the work, and this is what we're talking about. So, Kelly, please tell us about the offer that you're bringing to the wisdom community today.
Well, yes, I'm happy to do so. Thank you, Ian. I've constructed this so that there's several different options or packages, I guess you might say. The first offer includes harmonic healing star codes for physical issues, and you can scroll through here and listen to video testimonials. You can, read the information. You can see all of that. So the codes are sent as PDF. Okay, so there's a lot of them. And again, if you're drawn to using these codes, as we've tried to counsel everyone before, and you have multiple things going on, don't just indiscriminately just start using them all, okay? It's not wise. It's unnecessary. You know yourself probably better than anyone else. And so anyway, I guess I've covered that enough for now. So there's star codes for emotional issues. Usually there's the physical conditions. There's almost always an emotional component. So grief, depression, abuse. Many of my clients have suffered abuse, although that's not the full range of individuals that have come to work with me before. Loneliness, there's different codes there. There's star codes for viruses, and viruses, even in the context of the intergalactic system, which has multiple layers to it also, just like these codes, Michael says, that I'm introducing, are kind of simple codes. The codes can get more complex. We tend to also work with light codes when we're on star missions and we're retreating and working on restoring grids and so on, so that they might be stacked on top of one another. And so, of course, everything has infinite capability. So in any event, viruses tend to be stubborn, as Michael says, resistant to change, and what I know from my experience, but there's always exceptions, even if Michael indicates that, right? There's always exceptions. So there's information if you're suffering from different viruses. The reason kind of they're separated is just for presentation purposes. So you might find that in the package that along with the virus, you'll have a code for maybe there's a depression code. Maybe the virus is causing you to kind of be in that frequency. So in that case, you'd combine them together, but they'd all be there for you. There's also codes that are not so much for healing, but you can use for greater focus, to help you manifest, to create greater abundance, to help increase telepathy. There are many ways over the years that all the guides and masters we've done courses on, how can I increase my knowingness and, all that. There's multiple ways, but in this particular presentation, it's the way of using the star code. So a lot of times, again, they're for expansion, not necessarily that we're trying to fix or heal something. Another item, of course, then is originally how some of these portals teachings is so that we become more familiar with planetary ascension by connecting with God, Creator, Nebula, and Saturn, the great sons of Sun. And Michael tells us, within the PDF, why that can be helpful to a person. May not be what you're even thinking, but that information is kind of in there along with the codes themselves. A question that's in here, is it important to know what star nations the various star codes originate from? And Michael's guidance is, from the standpoint of healing, no. Although some people will find it interesting, and as he, reminds us that these codes are infused with multiple various star nations. Unless I would listen, wouldn't know that myself. But might be something that interests you, in which case, when we get to the piece with the webinar in this package is created to, go deeper really in the codes. If there's a code that's not presented, kind of like we're doing today a little bit. If there's a code that's not presented in the emotional codes, the physical codes, the viruses, etc., that's an opportunity for us to gather together and, listen or fine-tune or, anything that we need to do there. So the webinar is also, I believe, in this package. Yeah, that's item 6. So that's what that is to help us gather, to support our understanding. Also, my understanding is that star codes for children under the age of 18 are slightly different. So if you're listening and, thinking that, you're interested in the package and you have a child or grandson or some, whomever, that you might feel beneficial. Again, it's not that something can harm them, but Michael did say there's a slight difference. And so I honor what Michael said, and we can also, if that happens to be of an interest to anyone, we can go over that in the webinar also. Okay. Harmonic healing star codes for cancer. The codes that are included are the ones listed there. Again, if someone is concerned or experiencing a different type of cancer, again, I would encourage you to try to join the webinar or replay or email in advance so we can bring any additional cancer type that we might need to in our group community there. There are harmonic codes to connect with fairies. There are harmonic codes to connect with angelic realms. There's newer, I guess I would say, ways that are more current with the frequencies that are now current than things in the past. And again, it's not as though, how should I say this? Just like the intergalactic system, even though it's been on the planet 10 years almost now, it gets upgraded too. And as Michael tries, to just coach us all to move into, the frequencies of who we are and what's present on our planet, he said we can keep reading old textbooks, or we can pick up new ones. And so that's what these codes can be about. So there's infinite ways that you can learn in new ways, vibratory ways that you can connect with the angelic realm. As many of you, I believe, interested in, hope you are anyway. One of the things that, as someone here that's helping anchoring the grid, as the Pleiadian said, they need our help in changing the world, and so I have a discount here for any of these what I call Starseed global missions that I'm continuing to lead around the world. And a lot of times we restore grids. Mother Earth has an energy bodies that are very similar to our veins in our body. It's a crystalline grid, and there are portal openings, stargates, ley lines, and many light workers, people that want to be serving and contributing in some way. I find are looking for experiences to be useful, and so that's what that offer is about. Most of these journeys that I'm being led to do are in many of the portals where many sacred sites have been created by our light being friends. By the way, just as a note of record, Michael's, one of his kind of famous quotes years ago was, "Nothing is alien except your thinking." So if your heart and minds are open when we're referring to intergalactic or light beings, notice I have never, hopefully, the alien is alien. So just a little bit of a tidbit in reference, So yes, some of the things that we did in Glastonbury, where we worked with the intergalactics, we worked with StarCodes, we did healing work for the planet, and at the same time grew within ourselves. I'm sure this is a part of my journey that they're going to, continue. And if it interests you, I'd love to have you join us so we could always talk more about those.
Yeah.
So that's option one.
Option one.
Option two, then, is the continuation of star codes for EMFs. And again, that's a whole big topic, really, even in its own right. But I would be amiss if I didn't, include it and bring that to our awareness that it's a real factor in our lives that's going on. Also, this is the option where you'd have the ability to have a 30-minute private session with me where typically Archangel Michael would be your guide, and it's an opportunity to have him validate anything, to guide you in any manner, in any direction. More recently, in the last few years, many times people I'm finding do want to know their star origin. They do want to know their star mission. They do want to know their soul purpose to help give them clarity and expand them and to get them sort of going. My understanding is that most of us simply are not from Earth, and so, but whatever might bring a person to a consultation, it's certainly up to you, and I love helping people in that manner. It's private, they're confidential. Certainly you can ask about anyone, anything. I believe I missed a piece, Ian.
Well, there's two. There's a private session which is 45 minutes.
Oh yes, okay.
And then there's another private session. So there's two sessions there.
Yes. Thank you. Okay. Thank you very much. Okay. So included in that option. So package option 2 is what we're sharing with everybody now. That includes all of package or option 1 plus what we're describing. And the other item here is from anywhere in the world, immersion into a private Star Healing Intergalactic Energy session, any level. Some of you I've worked with before. Some of you I'm sure I haven't. But it is a system that is quite significant, I would say. It used to be only accessible in the higher realms, and it's a system which will, amongst other things, open Stargate portals for a person, remove fears past, present, and future, remove reptilian consciousness imprinting that was placed within us, remove any entities that might have been placed within us by the Anunnaki, to keep us separate from. So this is considered an ascension system where many sort of removal and expansive type of processes. Some of that expansion is done through the literal use of what you might call light language from the Pleiadians and many other light races. But generally it's considered a Pleiadian system, the great central sun. And so it's comprised of many components. And the components themselves or the benefits can extend into the decades, Michael says. From when someone has come to the system. Sometimes things are immediate. Again, sometimes things flow or come to a person in bits and pieces. There were multiple codes that were placed within us by the Anunnaki and perhaps other non-light beings to keep us separate from God mind, or whatever your word or concept is for all that is, and such as judgment codes, anger codes, shame codes, kind of a long list, more codes than I actually thought there existed. So that system integrates all of those, and it has a couple different layers because, like, very similar to these star codes. The analogy I like to give to people that are new to energy, or not even new to energy, but in terms of what we're talking about, if you try to flood, imagine a hard sponge and you're pouring water on the hard sponge, it doesn't integrate or absorb all that water at once. You know, it will once it gets moist, but some of it will sort of run off. And so that's why the Archangel very clearly directed me on how to present first attunements, second attunements in the system, and third attunements if they're ever needed. The other day, as another side note, everything is constructed to have cellular healing in the intergalactic session. And to the point that, you know, that image of the, what I call the Leo da Vinci man, that, you know, his arms are fully extended outward, and it has to do with sacred geometry, if you all have ever seen it. And his legs are fully open, and, well, that's sort of that master, Michael's saying, that master element of what's in that design as it relates to sacred geometry is co-created in the system by me visualizing a person as a 5-pointed star. So that's like one little, you know, piece of magic, I say, in a system that has really helped or healed thousands of people and animals around the world. So, again, that's included. We generally would start with a reading, the channel time together, and then follow through with the healing, because after that, you know, you might be very relaxed, you might be sleepy or what have you. So the arrangement of these things, by the way, if you're drawn to the second package, once I'm alerted that, you know, you've felt like you wanted to go deeper with me, then someone from my staff will email you, thank you, give you some more information about how to prepare. It's not a big process, but that's how the scheduling is done, is via email. And if you're not in the USA, we do need to hear each other. There's visualization that we use, so we use Skype or Zoom or some other outside of the USA means to, you know, conduct your session.
Beautiful. So just to summarize the sessions, one is a healing session, which is the intergalactic energy healing session, and the other one is a channel session with Archangel Michael, And in that channel session, it's more around the person comes to you with questions. Like, so what is my purpose, my lineage, my mission, things like that. And then Michael channels the answers and gives guidance, also revealing maybe the star codes that are most beneficial. Like maybe you did for someone today, I think it was Mary, who had a question, but the answer wasn't necessarily what we were expecting, right? Because Michael, of course, has the higher guidance. So in the channeling session, that's where people can ask their questions. So it's a one-on-one private channeling session where they get their questions answered.
Yes, Ian, and I would just say too, if you're new to that type of thing or not new, you certainly, many times clients ask me about other people. You might want to ask Michael about your pets. Again, I've been fortunate enough to have some guides fine-tune some things so that I like to think I can access many things that perhaps maybe you can't. Maybe in that session you want to know even more fully besides star codes, how do you connect with the angelic realm? How do I become more open? And, anything and everything really is, what that time would be about. You would create what's most meaningful to you.
Beautiful.
Okay.
All right. And that also includes, by the way, I know we spent a lot of time on this, everyone, but it's really important, also the 5G. So option 2 includes the 5G star codes as well. And there is another option here that we wanted to show. Kelly's put this into her package. Now, just to clarify, the last option, option 3, is a standalone option, right? It does not include option 1.
Yes.
Yeah. So just really so most of the time, everyone, you're used to the options, the later options, including the earlier one. In this case, option 3 is standalone. So if you do decide that you want to have this energy healer package that Kelly is going to show us in just a second, that does not include the codes and it does not include the private work. So this one is separate. So I just want to make sure everyone realized that and we didn't cause anyone any inconvenience because maybe you bought something expecting to receive the whole lot. So I just wanted to make sure everyone, because that's no fun. Then we'd have to undo everything and you'd be frustrated. So we
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
We'll keep that energy, we'll head that energy off at the pass. Okay. So it is it's a package or course for healers, right, Kelly?
Yes, option 3 is a standalone, particularly for that reason, because it is for energy healers with experience to become trained and join the global list of STAR Healing Intergalactic practitioners that already exist around the world through my online course. And so there's plenty of materials that are given and shared and so on. So again, if you are an energy healer of any type, Michael put forth the prerequisites, and that was one of them. He said you can't, what did he say? You can't run a marathon if you haven't run a race, so it is an advanced system to learn. And I'd, love to have the facilities to continue training healers and, happy to speak to anyone about that, should it move you. So that is a standalone. So there's package option 1. Package 2 includes everything in it along with 1. Okay, and 3 then is for the healers. One thing that I'd also mention is that I decided to add a special bonus that expires Sunday at midnight, and that is the first 5 individuals to purchase option 2, which we're calling the combined package, will receive my Prosperity Star-Coded bracelet, which is one of the accessories from the line that Michael has encouraged me to create, so that not only are there beautiful things of power, but also of healing. So that's included for a few folks that take some quick action. Yeah.
Well, it's gonna go fast. So please, if you're resonating, then if you really want that bracelet, I would suggest that you don't wait until this call is over. Let's put it that way. Okay. Beautiful. Well, thank you so much for spending the time putting that together and sharing the star codes with everyone, and also making those 2 sessions available. That's very, very rare to have a private session, which is channeling as well as the healing. So that's all available in option 2, and then the star codes in option 1 as well. So, Kelly, let's do this. Let's talk about the Stargates, because you're going to be doing a process which includes Stargates. So tell us about the Stargates.
Yes, I'd like to talk about it and then do it with everybody, or far, and, however we want to say that. Key codes and Stargates, I guess I would use the expression, how are they accessed during a healing? And the Stargates simply are portals from one dimension to another, and they serve to unlock material, energetic material, which is stored in our mind. And, so there are many facets to what Michael calls the Stargate experience. And another view of understanding this is to allow interdimensional energy between, these continuums of time and space. So it's going to be a journey in the system itself from Michael and the intergalactics and the Pleiadians. It's known specifically as the lower journey. So I've decided to take one aspect of the entire system, and the system again has levels, to share with everyone today. And so I kind of get going. I guess we'll start now, and I'll do a little over talking. So if you don't already have your eyes closed, you can. Just like most of what we've been talking about, and even if you've worked with me before, you don't have to see or feel anything. But if you do, and if we had some time, maybe you could write in and wanted to share some of that with Ian, and we could get to that depending. But that's what I'll be doing. It's called a journey because I'm going to help you facilitate accessing multiple Stargates. One of the Stargates is known as the Sapphire Stargate of Truth, where Archangel Michael resides. And so consciously or unconsciously, you will be energetically, in just a minute, I haven't started yet, be having this journey where at least 25,000 sacred geometric shapes that arise from the Stargate energies that are aligned through the galactic core are going to be coming together. So if you're looking for something to imagine, visualize some beautiful sacred geometry. So these Stargate energies can also assist you in being more youthful on a cellular level. And there's also star codes for longevity, by the way. If Michael says, which he has, of course, that healing benefits can show up decades from now after an intergalactic session, or sessions, depending, that's exactly true. If the Pleiadians are doing restoration work or opening these higher portals to the high universal frequencies, and they're restoring something, upgrading chakra systems through light language tones or the sacred geometry, or allowing these Stargate portals to sort of be, then great. So these Stargate energies, this process here, will help you open your heart and will assist you to be in the flow of what we might call the Christ consciousness grid, and also into this etheric crystalline core of Mother Earth herself. So nothing separate from Mother Earth. Obviously, everything is interconnected. So if you're all ready, I'm going to sort of start the process and take you on this lower journey. And if you're looking for something to visualize, it could be presented differently if you happen to have those sensations. But one of the things I would encourage you to think about is if you're imagining yourself lying in this Leonardo da Vinci man, I forgot what the in this five-pointed star of a human form. That's how I'm projecting everyone here collectively. Your navel is seen to me as the sacred center, and that connects through the conch shell, which is a tool that we use. The conch shell, in this system particularly, the Archangel says, if you understand the wisdom of the open chamber nautilus shell, which maybe another time we can just talk about these things in great detail, but in any event, the light beings first are going to be opening up energetically what I'm calling your sacred center to connect it with the inner earth and the generator that's connected there. When they sort of open it up, as I call it, there'll be pouring, usually. It's kind of a pouring of harmonic codes sort of energetically through there, through your etheric navel, down, as I say, through the Atlantean consciousness, connecting with it. If there were fragments where you had lifetimes there that were damaged, those fragments will be brought back into place. That'll be done first. Then if there are any attachments, I'll move through that process pretty quickly, and then I'll hold and co-create the Stargate energy. So all you really have to do is breathe. If you wanted to visualize, Michael quite often encourages it, and we'll be here about 5 minutes, okay? If for some reason somebody, happens to feel too much of the process, I would disconnect yourself. Generally, it's not really that way because we'll be grounding with Mother Earth's frequency. But again, everybody's different, and I don't, I don't know you all, don't have you all here presently. So I'm just going to get started, okay?
Okay.
You might hear me do some breathing. I choose to do the movements. Breathing has some relevancy to certain things. So again, we're going to call on all the spirit guides of all those that are present and all those that will be listening later. Also, by the way, if you're wondering, if you choose to listen to the replay later, let's say, and can you experience this again? Yes, but I would not go over and over and over it again, and I wouldn't listen to this process part while you're driving or something, okay? Just common sense prevails there because some people are very sensitive, and you might get very sleepy during this journey. Okay, so the invocation here is calling all the eternal souls to be present here, all of their spirit guides, all the ranking and filing of angels, Mother God, Father God, all the ascended masters, all the Christed extraterrestrials who are here to fulfill the divine plan on earth, to surround us and protect us, provide healing, lead us. We ask this in the I Am consciousness. I am, that I am, that I am. Okay, so there's always a prayerful invocation before any energy session is done. So now if everyone wants to just imagine, if you don't feel me down here by your feet, you can be seated, you could be standing, but we're projecting this, so your position matters not, okay? It matters not where you are in the world either. There's no denigration of the energy halfway around the world. So, but visualize if you like. I'm down here by your feet now. So I'm kind of working through the process of energetically opening, as I say, your sacred center to me in this system. Okay, next, I'm going to move through a quick process here. The Archangel named fishing. Okay, so if there are any attachments from this lifetime or any others that might be limiting you in some way, they'll be removed. I don't know that people have them. If they're not necessary, then the energy won't go there, okay? But most oftentimes, these attachments are not too difficult to pick up. You know, we can pick them up from watching a television show or any lifetime prior, but usually little gray kind of energetic creatures come off the end of the line, so it's called fishing. All right, so I'm in actually what we refer to as the standing star position. So this process might also give energy healers that are thinking about becoming a practitioner some insights into the system also. And so Michael says, in this position, invite them to imagine that at least 25,000 sacred geometric shapes are coming into cohesion for or with them. So again, whether you consciously know it or not, all you have to do is breathe. Right? We're facilitating access to, and of course we know Stargates, various Stargates are opening on our planet on their own, you might say, or under cosmic and divine order. But we also do it in this system. Sometimes people know what Stargates they're accessing. Maybe some of your callers do, or they can want to describe those things with us. Again, it's not a have to knowing. So I'll be silent here for just a couple more minutes. Right, so the idea here is to allow enough time for a person to journey. That's why it's called a journey. Maybe some of you will have a quick flash to a remembrance of some part of yourself that you weren't accessing before. Maybe some of you are seeing tubes of light emanating from the palms of your hands and the soles of your feet in addition to the crown of your heads. Maybe some of you are feeling weepy, Michael's saying. Maybe some of you are feeling and knowing that your heart has just been unfolded and expanded to the 10th dimension, he said. Michael saying, on the count of 3, would you be so kind as to say, I am all that is. 1, 2, 3. I am all that is. On the count of 4, would you please say, I am all, I am whole, I am well. 1, 2, 3, 4. I am all, I think you said, I am well, I am whole. 6. On the count of 6, what would you like there, please? He's just saying, Michael is saying to us, I'm humbled by your love of self. In the count of 6, please consider saying silently or out loud, I am love. I give love freely. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. I am love. I give love freely. Is there any more? Not at this time. Okay, so my eyes are open, my arms are open. I'm bringing that process to a close. It doesn't mean someone might still be journeying there, but so Ian, if you know, the process is closed.
Thank you.
So even as a surprise to me in those requests for time and counting, again, he's layering in something that has to do with numbers and sequencing. So all these things are kind of interrelated. They're never really separate from one another.
Beautiful. Thank you so much.
All right. How's everybody doing?
We're here. We're enjoying the energy. We're grateful for the energy. Yeah. And we could sit in the energy for a long time. We could just sit here. Beautiful. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Well, Kelly, as we bring this to a close this evening, is there anything that either you or Michael wants to share with this particular community, the Wisdom of the Ancients community, all these beautiful souls who are listening right now or later? Anything that we should know?
Yes, I'd like to ask him a final message if I can. What would that be, please? This is what I'm hearing. He's saying, be true to yourself. Extend your hand to your brother. Think of something and take action at least on one thing, 2 things, 3 things in your world that you can act on in an immediate manner, where you can transform it with acts of kindness. In no particular order next. He's saying, save an animal. That's what he said. Save an animal. Next. Know that you are loved beyond measure. Trust yourself. Know that you are Know that you are divinity through and through. Know that you are loved beyond measure. Remind yourself of your importance and power. Light overtakes all forms outside of light. Determine today in the here and now, if it's not already been determined, that you are a powerful, multidimensional, heart-centered, whole eternal being that is loved beyond measure. Know that we value and see your perfection in a world that is becoming more perfect, not less perfect. Diminish your association with things that fall outside of light. That includes anything where you might feel as though the information is being manipulated, covered up, or otherwise kept from you. pat yourselves on the back for being part of the largest co-creation of interstellar, galactic, Earth, humanity, community, consciousness, whatever words we use to refer to it, that Mother Earth has ever had the graciousness to extend. One final thing, if I may, for now, and that is, thank you for your humbleness, and please, dear friends, dear ones, dear souls, dearest of the wise ones, dearest of the ancient ones, bless your Mother Earth. Do something to sustain her, and know that things are in perfect order. Until we meet again, be blessed, be well. Expect things above your wildest, expect beyond your wildest imagination things to manifest in the here and now. And please, last thing, he's saying, I promise, the very, very last thing, promise, Michael's saying. You have so much to be grateful for. Could you please, dear souls, write yourself a love letter, and in it include something, someone, at least one thing, one person, one experience you're grateful for. And any time that you might feel sad, alone, depressed, or otherwise out of sorts, go back to this basic tenet, as we might call it, to restore yourself beyond measure. And don't be afraid to reach to the stars, because, friends, you are made of stardust. All my love.
Thank you, Kelly. Thank you, Michael. It has been so wonderful to have the both of you. What an honor to have you on the show. Yeah, but thank you so much. I know we all received so much, both in the transmissions and in the information that you shared, Kelly.
Thank you, everyone, and thank you, Ian. Bye-bye.
Bye now.